began sprucing up the Kenyatta International Convention Center, trying to put every duck in a row as far as that conversation is concerned next week. And we continue pace also to follow that. We'll have a discussion on climate summit and climate also funding here in the country. There is a fund that is being steamrolled by ActionAid that seeks to also make sure that climate justice happens. How then do we also pay up for the gaping hole of the climate funding? People who are suffering from the disasters of climate, of course, change, but they're never compensated, right? Recently, we had the United Nations also expressing concern regarding the gaping funding hole that needs to be plugged. But also, this morning, we continue to follow what is happening with our industries here, right? KQ has recorded another eye-popping loss, and it is still a mayday call for Kenya Airways as far as their operations are concerned. And the president also has been very categorical and fiercely not flinching when it comes to fighting the cartels here in the country. And of course, we have been discussing the recent remarks that he is not really rowing back from them, saying he will continue fighting the cartels, and his 3 words will continue to stand, right? Either you ship up or ship out, go out of the country, or make your way to heaven. We shall be looking at that and other, of course, stories this morning. I'm joined by Patrick Obath, who is the chair of KPSA Foundation. Also, we have the immediate former governor of Laikipia and an economist, Dirito Murithi. They are up and early here with me. Of course, bracing the cold. By the way, it's actually drizzling this morning. Make sure you carry your brolly and keep yourself warm. And it's good to see Patrick Obath, at least you're well dressed, keeping warm this morning. I wonder what happens to the shining pits of people who don't have hair.
Mine is by design, not by accident.
It's by design.
It's by design.
It is not a natural attrition.
Part of it is by natural attrition. And then around the natural attrition, you actually design around it. So
there is a design around it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and people are joking, with the shining pits as well, you can have good reflections, especially capturing the solar energy.
The solar energy.
Yeah. So that we can actually be having storage. We reflect.
Actually, if you think about, this is now sort of being scientific and looking in the future.
Yes.
There is something called nanotechnology, which is a way of using very minuscule items to do what you'd see in large items. So it is not, it wouldn't be unreal to find that you have a nanotechnology skin that you can put on a clean shaven head like this that would actually capture solar energy and be able to drive things.
So that
on
thing
your body.
is real.
Yeah, it's not beyond the realms of science. This is the whole point. And I'm a firm believer. We should really in Kenya be looking at nanotech rather than the current technology. Everybody's looking at ICT as the next big thing. But I believe that nanotech is really the next big thing.
It's the next big thing.
And we should be having the baby steps in nanotech, where people are having wearable interfaces to technology, the current technology. So you can have things that instead of having a keyboard, you just touch your fingers, right? And that translates to instructions to some connected technology. So I think when talking about heads like mine, we are potential solar generators in the future.
Wow, that is interesting, because now in light of the world coin, that every part of our body can actually be monetized, so to speak.
Yes.
So our shining pet, even for me then, maybe, I think as a source of revenue, I should consider having a shining pet, so the nanotechnology can come in handy.
It will be a bit bigger than that. It could be actually what you wear, clothes that you wear and stuff like that. There can be a whole, load of technology attached to the clothes that you wear, right? And they can interact with each other. They can, you can power a lot of the sensors on your body using the jacket that you're wearing. But that's a story for another day.
It's a story for another day, because I think also there will be a big conversation in this country regarding also the vaccination of COVID-19, right? Well, I don't want to let the bag out of a cat, or the cat out of the bag yet. So,
okay.
But that is in light also with nanotechnology. Yes, the flip side of it. And I don't know if that is conspiracy theory, if I may say, that they're using the nanotechnology, especially also with the vaccine. Some of the ingredients were not listed there, and Mara is in court actually. And so they're saying some of the ingredients that were not listed there, and these are some of the nanotechnologies that people now, we can get your data wherever you are. If you have been vaccinated, you can actually get all the profile of Patrick Obath. You can just use an app there and it lists all the details about you. Well,
interesting.
We are living in a country that is interesting. Let's see how the weather will be today. Make sure you keep yourself warm. Just up next. And there goes the outlook of the weather today. Make sure you keep yourself layered up today. And of course, we pray that more of the rains will continue. We want to see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper. This is what you're waking up to, the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. DJ Evolve, I should say. Why Babu was freed is the main splash on the front page of the Standard today. Justice evolves. An 18-page deal with DJ. Witnesses who recanted evidence. Questions without answers. Sheer or deliberate negligence. All these were at play at Embakasi as Embakasi MP cleared off the shooting of DJ Evolve at a Nairobi club on January 17th, 2020. The story is on page 2 and 3 of the Standard today. Surprisingly, they said Felix Orinda, who was expected to be a key witness for the state, was not a prosecution witness. This is what Bernard Ochoi, Bilimani Court Magistrate, says, and this is what you're waking up to the front page of the Standard this morning. It has been an ongoing case since we had that particular shooting, and now this is a summation of it. He is a free man, right? Was there a travesty of justice? Was DJ Evolved, of course, bought off so that he may call off this particular case, so to speak, or what was it? You can follow all the details inside the Standard this morning, and it's on page 2 and 3 of the Standard. Still on the front page of the Standard, deal Azimio Kenya Kwanza draw rules for national talks, it says. Framework agreement, rival political formation sign agreement outlining dialogue committees' approach to engaging stakeholders, collecting public views and use of expert resources. However, be warned, some sessions may be conducted behind closed doors. That story continues on page 6 of the Standard this morning. We'll give you the details as well. Cartels, defiant president insists on 3 options. Well, you know them by now. And the story continues on page 14 and 15 of the Standard this morning. Joho's farm suffers yet another blow. That is on national news on page 12 of the Standard. Gabon coup ends Bongo family rule. And that is on page 30. Yesterday you saw a clip of him really calling for your assistance. Make a lot of noise. Make a lot of noise. Did you see that, Patrick Obath? Make noise about this. Yeah, make noise about it. So what noise do we need to make about? Right? Make noise. You can read all about make noise. That we have the president imploring the citizens of the world to rescue him from the house arrest that he's in. Steeplechase stars renew rivalry. That story continues on page 48 of the Standard this morning. El Nino is coming. Be ready, warns the weatherman. And inside today, you have the real estate magazine that comes in handy for you. Investors raise appetite for industrial parks. You can follow the story inside the Standard today. Senate ejects Eldoret Jobs Agency boss. First Choice Recruitment Agency Director Judy Chircher kicked out after refusing to apologize for accusing Parliament of bias. All right, that is how it looks this morning. Make sure you grab a copy of the bold paper. The Daily Nation up next. Ruto Raila strike common ground is a splash by partisan talks. But the committee says its final report will include list of the contested issues. Give and take. The National Dialogue Committee yesterday agreed to discuss all agenda items proposed by both the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance and Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, a major breakthrough in planned negotiations. This includes Azimio's demands on the cost of living and audit of the 2022 elections, as well as the government's proposals on the offices of the official opposition leader and Prime Cabinet Secretary. You have the story on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Insert there the unflappable smiles of the two leaders, the president and Azimio leader Raila Odinga. And Budapest 2023, Kenya's good, bad and ugly. You can follow all that inside the Daily Nation on page 50 and 51. On the sidebar, war on graft, Kindiki cracks down on immigration cartels. Detectives have arrested 4 suspects in the ongoing crackdown on corrupt officials at the Immigration Department. That story is tucked away on page 5. Tales of woes from the victims of First Choice Jobs racket. That story on page 2. And Property Magazine comes in handy for you. Sharing matrimonial property after divorce, or how that really pans out, you can read inside the DN2 Pull-Out Magazine in the Daily Nation. Joho Farm, I should say. Joho Farm dealt blow in court battle with KPA over new tariffs. And Gabon coup leaders place Bongo under house arrest. Rebel officers seize power after disputed polls. You have the story on page 32 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Grab a copy for yourself to read all the details. The Star. Big crisis is looming over boundary review process. Catch 22. The law requires boundary review to be done by March 2024. IBC has no single commissioner to spearhead the boundaries task. You have a story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. And still on tour in Western Kenya, Ingoho has to be, of course, in the mix. A cockerel for you, Mr. President. And you can see him receiving a cockerel there, as is the culture of the Luo Nation. President William Ruto receives gifts from residents at Kakamega State Lodge yesterday. Or because maybe he is a president who also, his alter ego is a chicken farmer. All right, so poultry is actually right up his alley. You can see some goodies were brought to him yesterday, and a good gesture there from Western. That is the story you could follow inside the Star regarding his tour in Western region. On the sidebar, please make noise. Deposed Ali Bongo, please make noise. Deposed Gabon President Ali Bongo Ondimba has sent a passionate plea to the global community to make noise over the situation in the country where the military declared a takeover early yesterday. In a 51-second video, Bongo said he is relying on friends all over the world to be vocal about the situation in Gabon, where he is under house arrest. The story continues on page 2. Hundreds of police officers struggle with HIV/AIDS. That is another worrying story there on page 2 of the Star this morning. On top, Ruto's major climb down as committee begin talks. That is a story you want to follow on page 6 of the Star this morning. People Daily. IBC top agenda for Bomas talks is a splash. 5 key issues agreed on. Cost of living will form part of talks. A victory for Raila and allies. 2/3 gender rule will also be discussed. A win for women. CDF to be considered for inclusion in Constitution, giving boost to MPs. Office of Prime CS and leader of opposition to be entrenched. Electoral justice also included. And you can follow the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Kenya to host 24 heads of state for climate talks. That's happening next week. Reports on page 5, 9 and 14 of the People Daily. Ali Bongo overthrown just after a Gabon poll victory. And Kenya Kwanza, leader of majority Kimani Ichung'wah, says today marks a significant stride towards ushering in a new era of peaceful and constructive political negotiations And as Mio side, we have Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka saying the committee may invite, engage with, and consider submissions from stakeholders. The story continues on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Justice devolved. We can see Chief Justice Martha Koome here joining traditional dancers in a celebratory jig at the Turkana County headquarters ahead of the launch of e-filing system, an alternative justice system suite, I should say, at the lower courts yesterday. Counties, universities, all circles, 2.6 billion shillings. That is another story. People Daily. Mwanzo mpya, that is Taifa Leo, baada ya vuta nikute kati ya Azimio na Kenya Kwanza, hatimaye kamati yafikiana kuhusu agenda. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo. Gavana atoroka wakazi wenye hasira kikaoni. Gavana wa Matangi is a man on the spot and the MCAs are baying for his blood. Well, there is an impeachment looming over him right now. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. And wimbi la mapinduzi lazidi kuvuma Afrika. Mtutu wa bunduki ukielekezwa Gabon. That is where the barrel is facing right now. You can follow the story on page 3. And that story is tucked away there. This is Taifa Leo. We buckle down to business. How September taxes will hit farms and consumers. 6 tax measures kicks in Friday. E-Teams gives visibility to KRA on all transactions. We can break them down for you. Of course, we're watching Sokoni today. And the tax measures start in September 2023. You have 3% digital assets tax, seller of cryptocurrency, content, music, ebooks, photos, documents, videos, logos, animations, illustrations, social media, that will be taxed at 3%. 17.5%, this is export levy on imported iron, steel and clinker. And 10% export levy on imported paper, sacks, bags, and also mandatory electronic tax invoices or lose ability to claim expenses, right? So if you're not compliant as far as items is concerned, well, you cannot really claim. Doubling penalties on electronic tax, defaulters to pay fine twice the amount of tax due. That's how it's going to be. And tax amnesty, defaulters have until June 2024 to clear taxes or lose waivers. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Business Daily. And Kenya banks lending to parents' firms abroad up 61%. Kenya multinational banks increased their lending to affiliate companies abroad by 61% in the 6 months to June compared to the corresponding period last year, raising concerns about Kenyan forex deposit funding external assets. You can follow the story inside the Business Daily. National Oil eyes 5 billion shillings from investor in fuel stations deal. The National Oil Corporation is eyeing at least 5 billion shillings from the state-backed turnaround deal that will see it secure an investor to run its more than 100 petrol stations. Jubilee Holdings double its interim dividends to 155 million shillings and KMRC taps 3 billion shillings Africa Development Bank and World Bank loans. You can read all about it inside the Business Daily this morning. And we can cross borders right now. We go to Uganda, where Kayihura is a free man. He walks to his freedom, free at last, it says here. That is a general court-martial gives former police boss what critics say says his regimes failed to give many government opponents. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor this morning. And here is the walk of freedom as it can be. That is all tucked away inside the Daily Monitor today. Legislators to probe cash for cooperatives happening in Uganda. On top also, we have don't support General Muhoozi presidential bid. This is what Babu Owino is saying. And you can read all about it inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up there. And DM Today also comes in handy. All matters relationships are worth more than 150 bags of cement. This is what someone is saying there. And you can follow the story on page 22 of the Daily Monitor. In Tanzania, what difference are they going to make? These are the people that the question mark is hanging over. All eyes are on the latest cabinet reshuffle after the president appointed Tanzania's only third deputy prime minister, splits a ministry into let's go of some of familiar faces. You can follow the story inside The Citizen on page 2 and 3. Some who are dropped and some who are picked, they're all listed there. This is what is happening in Tanzania. All right. Everything is all sewn up for success as far as the Africa Climate Summit is concerned. But also we have 7 things that you need to know and expect from Africa Climate Summit. This is what the New Times in Rwanda is headlining today. Climate disasters cost countries $7 to $15 billion annually. This is what Africa Development Bank is projecting, or has come up with that particular empirical evidence. You can follow the story on page 4 of the New Times. Rwanda ranks 6th in wildlife conservation in Africa, and we can see delegates interact at the Business of Conservation Conference in Kigali on Wednesday. During the conference that took place ahead of the 19th edition of the Kwita in Zina on Friday, September the 1st in Kinigi, Musanze district, it was announced that the Wildlife Economy Investment Index report ranked Rwanda the 6th in Africa for wildlife conservation, attaining a score of 56.7%. All that happening in Rwanda. All right, China Daily is holding this flash for us. Mutual respect highlighted for China-UK ties, Sino-UK ties, and it says observers, global communications among key words demonstrating common ground. And also we can see bevy of beauties here. These are dancers, it says, from the Shanghai Ballet. We're posing for a group photo on the Magare Brug in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. A team of 107 Shanghai ballet members will stage 34 performances of the Swan Lake in 4 cities in the Netherlands. That is a story that you want to follow inside the China Daily this morning. All right, I shall show you much of the other dailies as well as we continue with discussion this morning. The Economist as well, and also The Economist, and we have also the Time magazine and the Newsweek as well, which is talking about climate change, that you don't lose hope as well. All right, the president has told off opposition and the Law Society of Kenya for faulting him over his resolve to deal with persons believed to be meddling in the quest to revive the sugar sector. Speaking during the last day of his 5-day development tour of the Western region, Ruto affirmed it will not be business as usual. The head of state, keen to wrestle the region from the opposition, urged leaders to work with him ahead of the 2027 polls.
President William Ruto's vow to deal with persons he says are erecting hurdles on the journey to resuscitate the sugar sector has triggered a war of words between him and the opposition Azimio and the Law Society of Kenya, but the head of state has stayed put, telling them off for castigating him. Speaking in Navaholo, Kakamega County, Ruto says those castigating him are basically siding with economic saboteurs, vowing to march on.
Watu ya Azimio ati wameenda kuissue statement hapo ati kutetea wezi na kutetea wafisadi na kutetea wakora. Ati watu waendelee kukula pesa ya Mumias hapa. Wacha nirudie ndio wasikie vizuri. Si ndio? Wameniandika, wamejaza maneno kwa magazeti, sijui Law Society wamesema nini, sijui watu ya Azimio wamesema nini. Wacha nirudie ndio wasikie vizuri. Wale wanaiba pesa ya wananchi, wameangusha kampuni ya Mumias, wameenda wakaangusha kampuni ya Nzoia, wahame Kenya. Wahame ama wasihame? Na wasipohama tunawafunga jela. Na wakiendelea wapange mpango waende mbinguni.
The president's 5-day working tour of Western Kenya has seen him undertake to ensure the ailing sugar sector comes back to life, reiterating to make an overhaul of state-owned millers management.
Kazi yangu ya 3 nilikubaliana na nyinyi ni kunyorosha management. Kunyorosha management ya hizi kampuni. Kwa sababu inawezekanaje ati watu wanalete miwa. Si ndio? Wakulima wanalete miwa. Alafu mimi naulizwa ati nilipe wafanyikazi. ati nilipe wakulima. Miwa ya wakulima ilienda wapi? Kabla sijaambiwa nilipe, ilienda na nani?
Kakamega largely voted for opposition Azimio, and the visit could be tactfully be a bait, with the president wooing leaders to desert the opposition.
Mnataka mimi nifanye kazi na huyu Wangwe? Tafadhali Wangwe, my friend Emmanuel.
Mheshimiwa Rais, watu wa Mavolo wamesema they are going to support you, na this time round wataweka kura yao kwa kikapu moja ambayo itakuwa ya Mheshimiwa William Samoei Ruto.
2027 kweli yule jamaa mwingine anaweza ngoa
Sasa kutoka leo sisi kama jamii ya hapa mkoa wetu, let's move together. Kama ni kosa tufanye pamoja, kama ni mazuri tufanye pamoja. Ndiyo siasa yetu iwe nyorofu, ndiyo tuweze kupata bargaining power.
Navaholo has experienced poor road network, and its connection to Bungoma County and other adjacent areas has been a nightmare. The head of state committing to address that. He commissioned the newly constructed Navaholo Medical Training College, whose mother hospital, the Navaholo Level 4 Hospital, will also be equipped. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Now, the public and stakeholders will be allowed to give their views before the Joint Dialogue Committee, as the 60-day timeline for the talks began running after the Senate passed the motion to establish the team. The 10-team member took another crucial step, signing all the framework agreement on the statement outlining the harmonized issues. The committee also hinted at proposing changes to the electoral agency selection panel that has been in office for 5 months now. And as KTN's political affairs reporter Emmanuel Toh reports, the team has until the end of October to give their report on the 5 issues up for discussion and report back to Parliament. Let's listen in.
After putting pen to paper on the 5 major issues of dialogue and the statement of issues at the Bomas of Kenya, it is now all systems go for the talks team as their 60 working days officially commenced following weeks of preliminary meetings.
Now our 60 days begin ticking from yesterday, and that is why we reaffirm our commitment to complete this process within the set timelines.
The committee now announcing that it will open its doors for the members of the public and stakeholders to send their views and comments to the committee.
We have also resolved that we shall be extending invitations to stakeholders and members of the public to present their memorandums to the committee.
The committee also wrote to the IBC selection panel to take judicial notice of the talks team and align accordingly. This ostensibly opening the door for possible changes in the membership of the selection panel that has been in office for about 5 months now.
You never know. You could end up with the reconstitution of the panel itself. You never know. Everything is on the table.
On the question of whether we are able to stop the selection panel, we are not writing to them to stop doing their work. It's just to take what has been described by the Honorable Eugene Omalo in our meeting as judicial notice.
In the statement of issues, the 10 issues earlier proposed by both teams have been collapsed into 5 clusters with sub-points under them. They include outstanding constitutional matters, electoral justice and related matters, entrenching funds into the constitution, establishment and entrenchment of state offices, and fidelity to political parties or coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy. The contentious issue of the high cost of living has also been included in the talks and pegged on Article 43 of the Constitution, which spells out the right of every Kenyan to have food. The issue of the review of the electoral boundaries was also included in the talks, with the delimitation process expected latest March 2024. Other issues will also include the creation of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and that of the leader of the official opposition.
We have adjourned to Friday this week at 10 a.m. to allow the Secretariat and the technical teams to work on prioritization of the issues and guide us on how we prioritize what issues do we begin with.
The framework agreement, which is a replica of the agreement of the bipartisan talks team, also states that when the committee reaches a consensus on an issue, in consultation with the coalition structures. The relevant part of the final report and proposals shall be ring-fenced from amendment. And after signing the framework agreement and the statement of issues, the 60-day deadline for the talks team to begin its sittings starts officially on Tuesday as the teams rush against time to have the issues laid on the table concluded in time. Emmanuel Toh, KTN News, Bomas, Nairobi.
Now you should brace yourself for a wet last quarter of the year. The Kenya Met Department has announced that some parts of the country have high chances of experiencing floods and landslides due to El Nino rains expected from October to December this year. The department listed a number of counties with a 99% likelihood of experiencing high rainfall, majorly in Western Nyanza and Rift Valley. Lilo Sige has more.
El Nino, characterized by warmer than average ocean surface temperatures in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, is known to bring excessive rainfall and flooding. Kenya experienced the effects of El Nino in 1997, resulting in exceptionally heavy rainfall and devastating floods. The subsequent El Nino in 2015 had a higher index but led to lower rainfall, causing less significant effects than initially anticipated. The Kenya Meteorological Department has forecasted a 90 to 100% likelihood of above average rainfall across various parts of the country as El Nino makes its return this year.
We are likely to see El Nino at almost 99 to 100%.
It is expected that most parts of the country will experience enhanced, that is, above average rainfall.
The Kenya Meteorological Department warning that some parts of the country have higher chances of experiencing floods and landslides due to the rains.
Occasional storms are likely to occur over several parts of the country during this season.
The central Kenya and part of the areas west of the Rift Valley highlands, as they receive enhanced rains, then we are likely to experience mudslides and landslides.
Flash floods will be prevalent in northeastern Kenya, where there are many seasonal rivers. Western Kenya, Rift Valley, coast and northeastern regions, as well as towns like Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru and Naivasha are also predicted to experience the same.
There is higher chances of floods in areas that are flood prone, considering the data that is available, historical data.
In the Western Kenya region, we are looking at areas along the Nyando River, especially in the plains of Nyakacha and Nyando, in the lower areas of River Nzoia.
Experts warning that, like before, Kenya might encounter devastating effects, including human and animal deaths and destruction of crops and infrastructure, among other hazards.
Of course, the other traditional effects, including drowning and other injuries related to people being swept by increased surface runoff, are likely also to be experienced.
So due to the increased runoff expected, we need to ensure that the safety of our dams and other reservoirs are prioritized.
In anticipation of El Nino, experts have asked the country to prepare for possible disease outbreaks such as dengue fever and malaria.
That we've been given very good lead times by the Kenya Meteorological Department to put in place mechanisms and interventions that reduce the vulnerability of populations at risk.
El Nino occurs on average every 2 or 7 years, and episodes usually last 9 to 12 months.
As countries within the Great Horn of Africa region are expecting what has been termed as the El Nino phenomenon, Kenyans have been warned to be more careful between November and December, especially during that time when the amount of rainfall experienced will be higher, and those ones living in lowland areas have been told to prepare for floods. Willie Lusige, KTN News, Nairobi.
Right, that is Willie Lusige there. And of course, the El Nino warning, the writing is on the wall. How prepared are we? That is the prevalent question, and we want also to look at that as well as far as preparedness is concerned. But looking at the editorial cartoons today, this is what is in the Standard: the coup in Gabon. If the little Murray may look at that, wait, I'm not supposed to break my father's record. This is how he's feeling the pinch being squeezed right now, and he's calling for Bunyasi Sakwa to make noise. Well, what noise will you make about it?
You should just go and rest.
Huh?
They've done enough.
They've done enough. What noise?
Enough damage.
When people are tired, they're tired.
You know, it's a good thing, or rather, perhaps the Kenyan, the political elite in Kenya is more adept, you know, with the talks and everything.
Yeah.
Because this is what happened. And, you know, the coup is, Gabon is only the latest installment. I mean, we had Niger the other day, Burkina Faso before that, Mali, even here, Sudan. So the reality is that populations are restive for many reasons. I think the primary driver across the world is cost of living. And those political elites that remain intransigent and oblivious of what the suffering that the peoples in their countries or their respective countries are going through, then that is their fate. I agree with Bunyasi Sakwa. I think that particular regime, it is beyond the writing on the wall. I think hiyo imeisha hivyo.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear from Patrick Obath. The coup that is happening, especially with the French, actually the French. Can we say the belt zone, the Francophone countries?
I think if you look at their historical, their sort of the way they were linked to France, they were not colonies like we were. They were actually provinces of France, and continued to be. And the relationship has always been that there's still a lot of influence that France has on those countries. And so the evolution of the freedom to protest, to discuss, to associate, to do whatever it is, I think has been less speedy than for the countries that were colonized, as opposed to being provinces. We had a lot more freedom to evolve. And so you find that there is a commonality in the way things are happening in the Francophone countries, I think based on their colonial connections in the past. And when you look at the other countries which are Anglophone, I think there were colonies that had freedoms, the governors had freedom to run the countries and everything else. So the culture in the country has evolved differently. So I think that this is not necessarily a thing about those, the fact that those countries are African, but I think it's linked also to the culture that was brought in by their links to their colonial masters in the past. And this will continue. This is the way things work. For us, in our countries, you find, people go to protest. Most of your Anglophone countries, you find people protest, they're locked in, whatever it is, and so forth. So there is this freedom, limited or otherwise, to protest. But in those countries, when people want to protest, effectively they cannot. And who protests on their behalf? It's the military. And they keep going after each other saying, no, we are talking for the people, you get out, we'll come in. So this is something that was bottled up for a long time, and all of a sudden I think you just seen the relief valve coming out as a result of pressures that are common across the world. Cost of living, really that has hit a lot of countries, and these countries are reacting that way.
And we can see the citizens also, they're in agreement with what is happening with the coups. We've had also in Niger, actually in Mali, Salif Keita, one of our consummate musicians there, also supporting this particular coup that is happening. So it's resonating with the citizens somehow.
You always get, okay, the population is really diverse, let's put it generously. And you always get, for anything that comes up, you always get a section that likes it or doesn't like it and so on. But I think the case of Gabon, the regime having been in power for over 50 years between dad and son is probably too much. And they don't have a terribly good reputation on the issues of transparency and financial governance. Having said that, all of the Francophone country, just add to what Mr. Bath had talked about, had an arrangement at independence in which France would guarantee their currencies, the value of their currencies, by fixing its exchange rate to the French franc. So variations only occurred. In fact, it sort of saved them from variations that would occur whenever the French franc declined, a kind of normal movement time to time. They are sort of fixed over time. But they pay that dearly. There are cash transfers. I think there is one of the countries, I forget which one, which attempted to refuse, and France was hostile. It's only in the last 2 years or so. They have a very colonial arrangement in many ways. That intimacy of provincialism gives an excuse for France to really get into the bedroom in their countries. Now, personally, I don't think that coups are the right way to go. Definitely not, because they have their own set of problems that they bring into the equation. They don't deal with the fundamental weaknesses that have been there. So I never sing loud for coups, but in the short run, it may provide a breather for the people.
Indeed, indeed. And that is the standard today with that particular editorial cartoon. Now, you've been urged as a citizen to also comment on the police uniforms. And you can see what sort of uniforms that now we do have. This is a police uniform feedback. And the much you try to peel back the pockets, you find the blue is still the blue that we've had. It's different shades of blue. It's barely now, it's barely 5 years since now we had the blue. From the blue, we're back to the blue. And questions have been raised regarding this. I don't know what will be your comment, because they're coming for you in the Rito Mareithi. That is, you can see also, Stano has drawn, is saying here, I called you urgently so that you can help me choose the new police uniform. Now, this is the recent one that they do have, the blue one. You can't be serious. When Jiko there is walking away. I thought it was something important like how to stop corruption, right? So donning new clothes over an old character does not really make Wanjiku happy. But we can talk about this because I would love to hear. For me, I prefer the old uniform. I think it was very good, very presentable. These shades of a new blue, well, it seems a bit different when we look at our police. They don't just seem, it doesn't carry that particular gravitas and the authority. So, because they're coming for your opinion, it's good to hear as well. What do you think?
Police reform or reforming the police service.
No, don't go the broadly way. Just start with the uniform first, and then you come to the reforms.
And I'm explaining. You see, and I think my colleagues here will agree with me. And those of us who have had the opportunity to make changes to large organizations. I mean, the uniform or what people are wearing is one tiny, important, but tiny aspect of the culture of an organization. So you'd have to go to actually, what's the point of it? Why are you changing the uniform?
Indeed.
Yeah, what's the point of that change? And I would have thought that the beginning point is a change from force to service. If you go back to the Constitution, what we have, what is created in the Constitution, is a police service. It was expected to change from the colonial mentality of a force of oppression to a civilian service, a service that is there to assist, support Kenyan civilians in certain manner. So, the change of uniform should be in that context, not just the shade of blue, whether you like the shade of blue or whether, in fact, you want to go to a different color altogether. So that's the way I would look at it myself.
But looking on the flip side as well, the cost of it from 2018, it's barely 5 or even 6 years since we changed this particular uniforms. Could we, mostly what we've not maybe questioned is the cost of having new uniforms. The last ones have not even lasted over a decade. Is it because of a political expediency? Because we had the deputy president saying, you know, those uniforms, we don't like them. We'll have to change them.
I'm a little bit more cynical.
You're cynical?
I mean, uniforms have to be made. Somebody has got to be paid to make them, and so forth. What's the hurry in changing the uniform or the appearance of a uniformed force? Mm-hmm. They have a uniform that they were given, right? Under the guise of a change from force to service and so forth. And as a colleague here says, to that, the key thing is, what are we trying to achieve below all this? We have had a whole host of reform programs with the police. JG laws, I don't know how many years ago, they tried to reform. The constitution came up, said we reform from a force to a service, mm-hmm. where we are providing service to Wananchi, rather than going out and bludgeoning them with with rungus and whatever it is. Right now, tear gas is the best thing for sort of bludgeoning people. And until that change has happened, all we are doing is we're changing the skin of a leopard, or you're trying to change the skin of a leopard. And it doesn't help anything going through all this, wasting people's time to go and comment about the selection of this, when there has been no fundamental change that Patrick Obath as a citizen has seen mm-hmm. in the conduct of the police force. I still call them a police force because that is what they appear to me. Mm-hmm. They don't appear to me as a police service yet. And when they appear as a police service, I will really be happy to go and discuss the change mm-hmm. of color and design and everything else of the uniform. But I think at the moment it's a completely displaced priority for this particular unit to start tinkering on the edges. Mm-hmm. They should really be focusing on the change of this whole outfit into a service to Wananchi, mm-hmm. not a force to Wananchi.
And this should, don't you think this should have been left also up to Mutava Musemi's task force, for them to really recommend if you need a police uniform change or not? Or the National Police Service has to be seen also, commission has to be seen now to be working as well as far as the uniform is concerned.
Well, my view is nuanced slightly differently from my colleagues. We remember the recent history of the uniforms, how the uniforms were introduced as part of our rapprochement with China. And the uniforms came from China, were made there, and so on and so forth. There might have been various reasons, but part of it was just economics, who was gaining. I think we should wear what we produce, like we should eat what we produce. We can make clothes, textiles that can fit uniforms. Let them be materials that we produce, and when you make a change, yes, there will be issues around immediate fiscal concerns, can we afford it or so on, but it becomes an impact in the economy also because you're using local materials to do this. I think that this change, these guys are going into all kinds of deep thinking around this. My friend Obath, my friend Reto, but I don't think it is all that deep thinking. I think it is part of the writing, not writing with W, correcting what might have been, deviations from the trajectory at that time, to come back to uniform that do not in any way, shape and form resemble what had been on in the last, I don't know, was it 10 already? Mm-hmm. Almost 10, maybe five or so. But going forward, and on a serious note, I think the uniforms can be changed, should be changed. They should reflect colors that are more in sync with what we like to have, and we should be able to make them here. Look at what KWS does. They have nice uniforms. They resonate well with the environment. We can do something, our designers can come up with, not designers, choices. We can get a specialist to help choose fabrics and fabric shades that would resonate well with our people.
All right. Does when does this tender get floated, or is this just a security? It's a security.
No. Well, I mean, I do have to.
It's a security apparatus.
Look,
was this tender floated? We've not seen this tender floated anywhere for people to participate.
Our colleague accuses us of deep thinking, so suggesting that some of these things should be just treated rightly. But
you're overbraiding it.
Well, I think that there are major issues about the police service, and I don't think that uniform is the main issue about the police service. Is it possible to reform or even change the trajectory of an institution? It is. Remember that the National Security Intelligence Service was previously, in fact, part of the police force. It was a special branch. And back in the mid to late 90s, a significant reform to transform it into a civilian intelligence service. And what you saw with that change is, in fact, a drop in police, shall I say, call it brutality, but a drop in the use of police, particularly for political purposes, because the new intelligence service was not arresting people in the 90s and going backwards. And intelligence sometimes is borderline gossip. Yeah. Now, what would happen is that they would take preemptive action. I mean, so they have been known to go to bars where Kenyans are enjoying their drink and arrest them because they are engaged in political talk. Now, to change and to get out of those kinds of outcomes required a reform that was to turn then the intelligence service into a civilian intelligence service. And I would personally believe that that was very, very successful. So, to me, I mean, I don't think we should really, it's wrong for the nation to be doing this sort of thing. We know the police service requires a lot of work about how the officers perceive what their work is. We know that although the Constitution creates the police service as an independent organization, it doesn't seem capable of withstanding political manipulation and political pressure. Those are the things we should be dealing with. I agree with Bunyasi that the uniform of an organization should reflect something about our ethos and so on, but I cannot, in all honesty, say that the shade of blue is the most important police reform required. It is very boring. You should better use of it.
Or blue at all.
Or blue at all, yeah. We should maintain blue. We shouldn't go to, I think, the black uniforms I've seen. Something was tickling me while you're actually speaking, because my colleague Mama Kim also, is giving her comments here on the feedback, and she was saying, you know, you Shatia police, it needs to be slim fit. Yeah? We don't want policemen who are fat. I think we missed out when you look at that. It needs to be slim fit. If Elud Kinude is listening as well, it should be slim fit a police uniform as well.
I think we should enforce a BMI standard.
Yeah, BMI standard for the police. But you see, it's always a downhill thing. At recruitment, those things are looked at, and when you look at a police officer when they recruited, or even in the discipline forces, you find they meet exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
But after that, once you're in, it's downhill.
But what is with the dental formula, especially with the KDF recruitment? I've never really understood. Why do they check if my teeth is really aligned or not, or widely spaced?
I have no idea.
I heard Lieutenant General Mwangi. Lieutenant General Mwangi was on JFK show one day, and he was asked that question. He said something about that when you have brown teeth, for example, or gaps, even natural gaps with the teeth, they indicate areas of weakness. And that at a critical moment when you are in combat or you should concentrate. I was amazed. I thought the explanation would be philosophical, but this clinical explanation just blew me away.
So chances of us actually getting hit because of a dental formula which is misaligned.
In my culture, particularly for women with a natural gap, the top collection of teeth is supposed to be
a beauty.
Of extraordinary value. Now this guy can't just debunk that.
Well, I think he is saying that such beauty should not be on the front line. That's the implication.
All right, we want to hack back into.
I think I've just been going on Google, and every single one they say you got to be physically and mentally fit. So part of that being physically fit includes that your teeth are physically fit.
7 o'clock on the nose. We take a short break right now. You're watching Sokoni. When we come back, of course, we shall be looking at what is happening with the Kenya Airways right now, continuing on a losing streak. KQ Mayday call continues. And should the government be actually bailing out these industries? Sugar millers right now, 171 billion shillings. We have also the CS of Education calling out the legislators to give thanks to bailing out universities, which are in the red right now. Of course, we had the Auditor General saying they're almost insolvent, and the 61 billion shillings waiver should be considered as well. And this continues also with Kenya Airways. The government had been categorical that towards the end of this year, December, this will be the last bailout. But how can we continue on such, of course, such losing parastatals and the government bailing them out? Isn't this also creating a spawning ground for corruption and malfeasance, knowing that at the end of the day, we'll come with the pail in the hand, asking for your deliverance? We'll take a short break. When we circle back, we continue with that.